Welcome to Tech for Impact by Freedom. My name is Darren.
And I'm Ben, and we are so thrilled to be on this podcast. What about you?
All good, Ben. I think we have a really exciting show today. We will be talking to none other than Mr. Kevin Heng. Kevin is the co-founder and chief strategy officer of Bitazza and Freedom. One is a cryptocurrency exchange, and the other is a Web3 and metaverse company, respectively, which actually leads to what we'll be talking about today.
Totally. And I think Kevin's a unique person in himself from a founder's perspective. One of the things I really loved about Kevin was that in my first conversation, he was a guy who's a founder who's telling me, hey, we're going to do nonprofit stuff. And I'm like, hang on a second. What's really going on here? Are you a founder, or are you trying to do nonprofit, or what is it? And I thought Kevin really had it nailed down, right?
It's very rare for founders to make that a priority in their ventures, especially when there are so many things happening for startups, especially because his focus would be fundamentally on building the vision, working on the operations, and then having that I guess fortitude to make sure that nonprofit and charitable initiatives are weaved into the DNA of a brand.
I love what we're trying to do here on this show as well. And Kevin's like a prime example of how that's even possible. So I think we should just go straight to him and kind of listen to him on how he's using blockchain.
Welcome, you're listening to Tech for Impact by Freedom World. It's a show where we discuss how technology plays a big part in making a difference for nonprofit organizations and charity initiatives across the globe. A lot of people talk about blockchain, and one of the advantages is its transparency, right? And I think it's very important and also very relevant to our subject of making impact through charitable organizations and nonprofits. That's why I think transparency and trust is such a big issue. And can you talk a little bit about that and how blockchain gives way and opens up doors to trust like never before?
In our past times, we've always had to have this middle layer of trust. It takes a long time for people to gain trust from other people, right? And in order to have full trust in someone, it takes time, it takes relationships, it takes experience, working together and dealing with each other to be able to trust each other. The logic of trust is that it takes time usually. That's just because you're not sure exactly if you're going to be conned or scammed, or someone's going to say exactly what they say they're going to do, or the information that's provided to you, is that real or not? So that part of the trust, usually we sort of second it to like a middle person that manages that. So, instead of relying on banks in e-commerce platforms, all these middlemen softwares today that are sort of centralized platforms, in the future, I think that, most of the world will be based on decentralized platforms.
So essentially, you don't have a third person saying that this is verified information. However, this is like a larger group of people saying, yes, because we all know each other and this looks like a true fact, therefore it is what it is. Is that kind of like how they're justifying that it is trustworthy information?
So it's not that it looks like it's fact, it is fact, because within the blockchain, you cannot change the information that's within it. For example, you've set like a smart contract to say that this amount of money will be released to this wallet address at this time. It's basically a contract that has been written and it would be followed. So that's why you've just removed that layer of trust required in there. So that's how it's going to be executed without a layer of trust.
Got it.
Right.
One of the reasons why I asked that is because today, and this happened like a couple of hours ago, my wife, me and my brother are actually on this third-party chat program, and we have to trust each other's keys and stuff like that. And because this whole concept of, trusting the other device and all of that came up, my wife made a very interesting comment. And she said, trusting people itself is really difficult. Now you want me to trust machines, right? How do you kind of like get around that mindset? Because at the end of the day, people have to use this. And it's easy for us to say, hey, blockchain is trustworthy because, all the nodes have said it and you've stored that data. For a person who understands the technology, it's perfectly fine. But for a layman, how do we kind of refocus them to kind of say, hey, this is actually trustworthy?
It's a very interesting question. I think the trust actually is not in the automation of it. I think that we tend to think like, hey, like, is a machine going to actually execute something that a human would usually do, right? It's not that. It's more like trust in the information not being tampered with, right? So basically what happens, it's like the information is verified by many millions and, possibly even a billion machines right now, right? So it's basically a way that machines work together to be able to verify information and then execute on whatever is there. It's kind of hard to explain why this allows us to fully trust it. But it's important to understand that the information in there has high integrity, right? Firstly, you have to strive to understand what it means, right? And what it can do and what are the values of it. The problem a lot of people we see that is coming up nowadays, they focus so much on trying to put everything on the blockchain. You need to also understand that not everything has to be on the blockchain, right? And that's why I mentioned earlier with parts of automation and stuff like those are all stuff which you can just do outside the blockchain. But what you want to maintain within the blockchain is anything of value that you want to ensure that you have ownership of it and no one else has it. So the person that owns that private key has that information or has that value of the assets within it, right? So that's what we mean by the value that we are trying to build.
I think the potential for growth and the fact that we're only touching it, just scratching the surface, which is very interesting. And that's why I wanted to ask, what do you see in the potential of nonprofits and charitable movements and how blockchain, can play a part in that? Because like you said, there's so much that we can do with it. What do you see blockchain playing a part in nonprofits and charitable organizations?
So with nonprofits, I think that, the important part is basically transparency, number one. And also at the same time, credibility, right? Like when people help or they provide value or they create impact, all that doesn't sort of get recorded in any way. I think sometimes people just want to feel as though that they are actually contributing to something. And I think that this transparency of donating and then having tokens represent your sort of donation status within that charity. Onward from there, the charity using those funds to actually do what they say that they're supposed to do and that nonprofits are supposed to do. This is the part of transparency, right? So blockchain can also help a lot with that. But there's a lot of use cases or tasks within blockchain that we need to build to ensure that all that connects. And this is what we are also trying to do in Freedom World.
I think it's the back of everyone's head because, last time they'll get us on the TV and they have ads and, every 5 seconds, a child dies in North Africa. And then you feel so goddamn bad that when you're compelled to do it, but then you always at the back of your head, always back of my head, I'm always thinking, is this where my money is going? They're sending me pictures of this poor kid every time I donate, but then you never really know whether it goes to them. And then true enough, later on, I found out that most charitable organizations take 80%, even though they're nonprofits, they take 80% of the earnings or the donations because you can't blame them. They have administrative costs. They have overheads to the expenses to pay off. They have budgets to adhere to. And I hear they would even use almost 60 to 70% of the donations coming in for marketing budgets. Even though, most people who volunteer their time, but I think a lot of the time you still have to pay something for the administrative efforts for people. It's a proper job for a lot of these big nonprofit organizations. I guess this would definitely shed some light into you would know exactly where the money is going, rather how the money is being used. But this also requires the organizations to adopt and embrace blockchain, right? So what do you think is the number one challenge for these organizations to embrace this technology?
Originally, where, all these nonprofits were created because people wanted to ensure that the funds or donations from people who are worthy are going to the right places, right? And that's because prior to this, there's no technology, right? There's no means of people understanding what initiative that they really care about is actually doing or what kind of needs do they have, right? If you want to save the turtles in this beach in, somewhere that they're almost extinct, for example, you don't know exactly what the scenario of the person or the people who are trying to save the turtles are actually facing, right? Are they facing lack of volunteers? Are they facing lack of resource? Like, we don't exactly have this connection that we do today. And I think that's why we've sort of rendered those kind of organizations, we don't need them to funnel things through anymore because you get to be connected to the causes that are most passionate about putting blockchain in the middle of this. You get to really connect to these three main parties, which are the people who are on ground doing things, people who need help, and you yourself as a donator are able to sort of connect to them in a much closer manner. And all that donations that you do for charity to that cause specifically, or even if you're just volunteering, you're going to get some sort of social credit in a way that you're going to be rated for how much you're helping, right? The more you donate or the more you volunteer, all this will have some sort of like social rating system that would allow us to be able to see on the blockchain that this person has earned that sort of credibility within that specific initiative or cause.
Hey guys, this episode was brought to you by Freedom World app. It is a gamified social platform where you can join communities around a variety of interests, popular brands, events, and much more. You can immerse yourself in the community that's filled with activities and connect with like-minded individuals who share your passion. It's also the perfect platform for small businesses, content creators, or anyone looking to create a community. You find a variety of tools and features ranging from news feeds and your own online store to creating branded tokens and AI-generated content that will help you engage, monetize, and grow your community. Download Freedom World on the Apple App Store or Google Play Store and create your world today.
One of the things that I really, really like, and that conversation with Kevin really brought out in me, was the fact that, it's not always easy for us to say, okay, when we say blockchain, our brains automatically go, wait a minute, this is crypto, this is Bitcoin, this is Ethereum, and all these other names that are there. Hearing Kevin talk about the whole social ratings element was like, oh, wait a minute, you can do that? You don't really think about those kind of applications.
Yes, exactly. And whether it's a plus or not, people make this equation of blockchain to cryptocurrency, and then cryptocurrency to scams or to the bad reputation that's been floating out there. And I think that's why immediately when we talk about how nonprofits and charity work can be associated with blockchain, then it tips the balance of the negative perceptions that are out there.
I think the most important critical aspect is, how do you get these guys to actually adopt technology? It doesn't matter whether it's blockchain or any other kind of tech, right? If you notice, like the really, really good nonprofits, the ones that are really successful, they look at themselves as a company, and the mindset is that, hey, let's adopt as much tech as possible so we can grow as much as possible. But how do you actually get these smaller guys to adopt the tech? And I think therein lies the challenge for most tech companies who even try to do any good.
And you know what? It starts from the topic of what Kevin mentioned, and that begins with trust. And I think that is where the genesis of adoptability should start from trust. And it's very interesting for him to begin the conversation with the topic of trust. Its core begins from an emotional standpoint. And it's interesting to hear from him how technology evokes that sense of trust. Because right now, I feel like the more Kevin explains it, we'll get this idea of how he's found that balance of using technology and blockchain to build trust for a lot of these nonprofit organizations. You've built 2 companies. You are running the companies actively every day. There are 2 worlds that you live in. One is the tech world, and it's so fast, it's so demanding, everything changes all the time. At which point did you step back and you had that, the aha moment, the epiphany, where you go like, you know what, I think I can use this technology for good. I can maybe use blockchain to help humanity in some way. Was there a certain point in time, or was there something that you saw, or what was the trigger for this initiative?
To be honest, I think it's just a gradual build-up of understanding the unfairness that happens in today's world. Going through the rat race, understanding how everyone's just sort of struggling to make ends meet, and everyone's kind of living on like the next paycheck kind of situation, right? And a gradual build up to understanding that a lot of that can be fixed if people are given the right tools and taught how to use it. And I mean, there's so many things that can be done. It was just when we started building Freedom World, it was about equality, about removing middlemen, about being decentralized, right? if we're going to just give like $1 million to someone, right, that's just going to be the value of what it was used for. And then a portion of it goes to admin, and then the rest of it just goes into buying something. So are you really providing that much value back and creating that much impact? That's like a question that has to be asked, right? Like, in order to create most impact, would it be best for you to give value in an area in which you're spending all your time in and you're understanding every single aspect of what you're doing? So that's what actually really triggered me to just think, okay, we have all these things. Let's just start providing these tools to people who actually want to do good, and to all these organizations, these orphanages, these charities that are trying to create like an initiative around it with volunteers. Just assist them, right? Give them the tools to be able to collect those funds and actually, bring it to the people who need it directly. It was basically like a gradual process of understanding and building the product for businesses, and then understanding also at the same time how it could give back to people who are trying to do good.
So I think this is the point where we ask, what are the things that you hope for, not just only for the blockchain and the technology, but your hopes and dreams for humanity as a whole. How do you envision us helping each other?
Similar to the previous question, we would probably only be able to help each other the moment that we are fine, right? And that's where we need to get first, by sort of like creating an environment whereby there's equal ground and people can create businesses. They don't need millions of dollars to create an app, or they don't need all this special tools to be able to do marketing. So all these things, I think that it needs to be provided to people, right? And the moment people have those tools provided to them, they can then make an income that they can sustain themselves and their families. And then after that, we then have time to think about how do we want to contribute back to the world. And then that's where I think that the most interesting ideas and stuff that really pushes humanity forward is going to really come. We should try to create a better environment for ourselves. And in order to do that, we first need to take care of ourselves first. How do we get as much people on Earth to self-sustain, and then we can move forward.
Okay, before we let you go, can you tell us a little bit about what Freedom World has been doing for social good right now? And where do you see the app and the technology bringing the social movement for good forward?
Yeah, I think right now we are sort of connecting to many different nonprofit organizations, and they have different use cases for it. We have orphanages, we have charities for the disabled, we have runners who are running for the disabled children. There's also people who are helping to buy food for the poor who can't afford like their daily meals. So there's so many kinds of different initiatives that people are trying to create on Freedom World right now. And we are just sort of working with them to ensure that journey is done properly, in the sense that whoever who's going to donate to that cause or wants to be a volunteer to that cause can really engage with that specific community or the nonprofit in a more engaging manner, right? That's how we are trying to work with all these nonprofits right now. And what we're also doing is that we're sort of like creating like a token system that will signify your credentials or your the value that you've given back to this community, right? So if this community is very passionate about change of climate, then there will be discussions held between that. People will share content will be valued and rated very similar to how Reddit runs, where people will upvote and downvote the information that people share, right? So you may just be someone who has a lot of news and information to share about a specific topic. Maybe you don't have a lot of money to donate, or nor do you have time to volunteer, but you may be someone who shares information, right? So a lot of times they don't really have this platform to be able to value each other or their contributions to that specific purpose, right? That's what we are trying to do right now with all these different kinds of nonprofits, is that we're trying to understand what they're trying to achieve and then create the tools for them to be able to engage in whatever stakeholders that they need within that platform in order to make it work, right? If I need more volunteers, then they would partner with like different universities to be able to get volunteers from impact studies to come and help out. If they need more donations, right, then they would go and talk a little bit more about what they're doing and their initiatives and get people to fund it by buying tokens. And this token system will sort of value what someone has contributed to that. So if maybe a celebrity just tweeted about this specific topic and then everyone started donating to that nonprofit, then that credibility credibility of that celebrity would go up within that specific initiative. In the past, it would not have been appreciated for what they've done, but you did a post and it does impact, but you can't really value or attribute the exact impact of it, right? But now with blockchain, you can, because those tokens of credibility will be given to that specific account. Now you can value that. These are like the smaller, finer details of what we're trying to really work with all these nonprofit organizations to create those use cases. And then after we've created really strong use cases, then it will be very evident to other nonprofits how they can actually use the same tools to be able to achieve their objectives.
I think the alternate thought process that Kevin's kind of bringing onto the table when it comes to blockchain to move away from, hey, this is just a bunch of coins that you trade, is phenomenal, because the use cases are so many that a lot of people don't really think about it, right? It's like saying, I've got a knife, I've got a cutting object. I can cut down a tree. I can trim, I can cut my vegetables for cooking. I can go and stab someone. I can do so many different things, right? There's both the pros and the cons. But at the end of the day, that one thing that you have in your hand is a tool. And similarly, blockchain is a tool. I love the way that he kind of like shows us this alternate image and saying, it's not just coins, guys. You can do a lot more.
I think the important outtake is people's perception of blockchain. As like you said, it's a tool. I think it's about how people perceive the tool as one that exasperates or evokes trust, transparency, and most of all, credibility, because the more people understand the tool, then they would get a much better idea of how to utilize it.
Yeah, totally. Talking about transparency, trust, and credibility, I think we need to come clean about where we're currently operating from, because we're part of Freedom. And so, just for the viewers, it's not like, wait a minute, what are these guys doing?
I mean, it's a really good point. Just being transparent. This podcast is sponsored by Freedom World. It's a community building platform where I think not only brands, but any business, including nonprofits and charitable initiatives, can adopt, where it builds, engages, and finds ways to monetize their efforts just by building community and gathering people to just one spot. And it's open for everyone. And it's also free. So I think there are a lot of benefits and pros behind the platform. At the end of the day, what's important is to see how these organizations and brands can use a platform that really draws people together rather than just sells something,
Going back to how Kevin's vision is there for helping people, this app is for the common man. You don't need to know blockchain to kind of operate it, right? It's applicable to anybody and everybody. It's open to all. So that's something that I think is very, very unique about it as well. Yes, it's built on the blockchain, but doesn't mean that you need to have some kind of technical expertise, right?
Yeah, all they need to understand about technology is that with blockchain, with Web3, this is an app that offers a platform that promises transparency and credibility, especially, and also gives ownership to the users themselves. Whatever we use on the platform cuts out the middleman. So everything that you do is identified to you. You own every single thing that you earn through the app. And it just gives, excuse the pun, it really gives freedom to a lot of people in the sense that...
I think that was almost taken away from everybody during the Web 2 era. Like, you get free apps, but the data isn't yours, then you're sold to, and so on and so forth.
That's a good point. Data. I think that's one of the things that is most important, right? You own your own data. And I guess down the road, Freedom World will have that feature where people can maybe hopefully monetize your data, and gives you all the ownership to it. So you can monetize it, you can share it if you want. You don't have to share it, you can keep it. Fundamentally, it gives you the freedom to make that choice.
Awesome. I think we need to thank Kevin, because as such a busy man as he is, running 2 companies, still took the time to come in and have that conversation with us. Thank you so much, Kevin. It's been a pleasure having you. This is the Tech Impact podcast.
Bro, that is perfect. I can't think of a better way to to end this. So all the other listeners out there, please download the Freedom World app. Look for your favorite community that you want to join and go out there and do some social good.
You've been listening to Tech for Impact, brought to you by Freedom World, a cutting-edge technology platform dedicated to building and growing active communities on the blockchain. This episode was hosted by me, Darren, and my co-host.
That's me, Ben.
This episode was produced by Arun Joseph from The Surge.online, edited by Andrew Martin. Sound design and mixing was done by Peter James, and incredible music is by Kushi. Thank you for tuning in. If you've enjoyed this episode, don't forget to share it with your friends, subscribe to the podcast, and leave us a review. Until next time, stay curious and keep making an impact.